Hi guys. Well, a little bit of trip down memory lane for me is that fortunately Facebook does a great job of reminding us, and obviously, as you guys saw from my post, I got reminded of the 10-year history that we made. And I think the thing that struck me the most about that was it's still our best finish. Obviously, as you guys have probably seen over the years, we're going into our 15th season, and Sammy's been around the program for all but one, and obviously I've been around it all 15. And it's really interesting that I think in this group, let's see, Danny, you were out of the first year, right?
Yep, I was out of the first year.
Are you the only one in this group that was out of the first year? And Elby, you, Grinder, and Elby, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was really interesting to kind of, for me, when I saw that picture and I saw that it was 10 years, and it was like, it took me back to, what really took me back to was the commitment that the team made 10 years ago. I remember very clearly them talking about how they were going to be the best parachuting team in college that year. And it's no coincidence that that group made it to the national finals that year. And of all years, it was the only year we've been on ESPN, correct? Am I right, Sammy, on that one? You're pretty good.
I believe so, yes.
As a team, because we've had a couple individuals.
Yeah, but I don't think it's ever been. It was only on ESPN to 1 year, right?
Yes.
I think so. Then it went to Fox or FS1
Yeah.
or whatever.
And I think it's been on CBS Sports and all that. So I think that was the only year it was on ESPN. And it just so happened that year we had Andy March traveling with us. So he was able to take, he was able to take tons of great pictures. And I just the whole trip overall that year, being in El Paso, being on ESPN, having Andy there with us to help us with all the media and the TV and everything. And then the fact that, we had guys on the team that had been there all 4 years, and some of the parents that have been traveling with us. I mean, I get teary-eyed even thinking about it, because I'll never forget turning around and seeing some of the parents crying, So I really hope Albie can jump in here, because his mom is definitely one that jumps out. And then Danny's parents, Danny's parents went to everything. I mean, they were like, I've only had one other set of parents travel like they traveled, and that was Doug and Lori Davidson. So, so we've had Mama Locke, and then, oh gosh, we even had Dominic, right? I think Dominic Dominic is like, he's graduating high school now?
He's getting ready to finish his freshman year in high school.
Wow, yeah. So Dominic was like,
wow,
2, 3, 4, I don't know. He was pretty young. So,
y'all are old.
Yeah, it's just,
literally.
I don't know. For me, it was just really, really cool to see that memory, and it just kind of struck me, So, so where would you like me to go from here, Wendy?
Okay, if you could kind of call out each of them so they can just fill us in a little bit on life, just where you are, like I said, dogs, kids, pets, wives, careers.
Well, the one thing I will say is that we do have the state tournament team that I bowl on. 4 of them, all 5 of us are here actually. So although Boner keeps jumping in and out. So, hey, what are you doing there, huh?
On my phone.
You smoking a joint?
Yeah, Derek
Hey,
is
remember,
definitely
we're
the one.
recording. We have to behave.
Yes, we have to behave. Derek is definitely the one most likely to get in trouble. So why don't we let Derek talk about where he's at now?
Okay.
Well, where I'm at right now is I'm working at Ford. I've been there for a couple of years. Still living in Whiting. I'm happily married right now. I coached high school bowling for about 8 years. After I was done, when I turned about 21, I coached high school bowling for about 8 years. Not too much day to day has changed. Just helping out bowling with Coach Sammy. Like Coach said, with the state team, we still do that every year. Obviously not this year for reasons. We still get together. Some of us are nationals too. I'm still a big part of the bowling community, I would say. Regularly bowling leagues and stuff. I still do a lot of fishing. That's always been a big part of my life. But from as of right now, day to day, just kind of working, just taking life day by day. But not too much has changed. When I was in school for the 1 year, the year that we made the national championship show. After that, for a few years, I was kind of in and out of trouble. And then actually, when I was about like 21, 22, I started bowling with Coach and Sammy again. And then kind of got things back on the right track and everything. And kind of doing good now. So,
Bone, should we tell them what happened at the national finals?
Yes.
Come on, Derek.
I don't remember what you're talking about. So yeah, say it.
Oh, how convenient.
Why did Mikey get in the lineup?
Oh, because I totally fried out after a gutter off my ankle, and then I fouled with my right foot. I had my freshman tryout.
I see why you forgot.
But in Derek's defense, he has always been one of the best teammates. He's always brought one of the best attitudes. So yeah, he had what we call a freshman moment. So let's see. So then now if we go over to the left here, then we have my son Michael.
Hello. Well, let's see. So I live down in DeMont now. I'm about an hour away from the college, a little over an hour away from the college. I work at MedSpeed as a service coordinator at the control center. As a supervisor position. This is really cool right now with everything that's going on in the country, and we are business has actually exploded for us because we're actually moving COVID samples all over from different clinics and hospitals to different lab testing facilities, and setting up temporary lab testing sites all over. And we're a big part of moving all of those samples, so that's kind of fun. I've been with my girlfriend Kristen now. We've lived together for a little over 7 years. She has a kid who's my stepkid now. He's gonna be 14 next month, so that's a lot of fun. Beyond that, like I don't bowl nearly as much as I'd like to, but I'm so far away from the bowling community up north where it's a lot stronger. It makes it tough. It's a lot of driving. Right now I am working from home, but when I'm at work, I'm driving 80 miles one way just to get there. So just it takes a lot out of me doing all that. I did kind of want to touch on too. One of the things that Coach talked about there in his little opening monologue was the spare shooting and our dedication to sticking to fundamentals all year. I kind of wish Grinder was here for that because he was kind of the old man on the team. He was 32, senior in college. And he really kind of kept everyone on the right path. And we'd miss a spare at practice. He would hold us accountable and make us drop and do push-ups. So, I mean, it was just one of those things that from day one, preseason, it just kind of snowballed downhill. It just kept getting more and more prevalent as the year went on, and it showed. I mean, we kind of got steamrolled in the finals, but that dedication to spare shooting and fundamentals as a whole really showed on the path for the whole season to getting to the finals.
Who did you play in the finals?
Wichita State.
Oh,
Before we move on to the next one, I have a question for you guys. Obviously, we made the commitment that year being the best spare shooting team in college, but which players do you think that came from? Did it come from the captains? Did it come from somebody within the team? Who do you think it was?
Grinder and Albie, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course, the two that are here.
Grinder and Albie were the two captains that year, right?
Yes. And they kept everyone. They held everyone accountable, but more importantly, they also held themselves accountable. I don't know how many times I saw both of them drop down and do push-ups too. Like, I mean, we had the no swearing rule at practice, and if someone swore, it was push-ups. They would do that. If they dropped a swear word, they would do push-ups. If they missed a spare, they would do push-ups, and it gave them that kind of credibility when they called someone else out on it.
And we all know how Elby was.
Yep.
Well, I think one thing to say too is, even though we had a lot of fun throughout that whole year too, we had a lot of fun, a lot of jokes were said and all that. But I still think when it came down to it, when it came down to those moments and stuff, we were still a very disciplined team in that aspect as well too. Because when it came down to crunch time, we knew what we had to do. We got together, we would huddle, we would talk about what needed to be done, game plan, ball changes, whatever needed to be done, and we would work together as a team to make it happen. I mean, with like one thing that I always thought was great about that team that we had was, whether you were on the bench or you were the anchor or you were leadoff man or you were sitting there tracking all day, everybody was on their feet, clapping hands, good job, high-fiving everybody. There was nobody talking down to each other, this or that. Everybody was there for one collective goal, and that was to win a national championship.
Yeah.
Excellent. So the next one was one of our seniors, and I don't. Were you a 4-year starter, Danny?
I was.
Yeah, and he was also our lefty. And if you watch the show, he threw the first shot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big lefty.
Reaction.
Back.
I missed it. I don't know what.
Oh, he blew it. He blew it away. 10 straight back.
Oh,
It was a great
a
shot.
perfect shot. It was, yeah, definitely. All right, so we'll let Danny go next.
Yeah, guys, I am actually now living in Nashville, Tennessee.
I can hear it in your voice.
Everyone says. I don't hear it, but everyone says that now. I work for Bulwark Protection. We are one of the leaders in flame-resistant clothing. So I now go to a lot of the oil refineries, electrical utilities, manage accounts day to day. I have been married for, this year will be 3 years. And we just bought a house last year, 45 minutes north of Nashville in Springfield, Tennessee. I still bowl once a week on Tuesday nights, and I'm in a mixed league. And right now we have our children we have a cat and a dog.
During quarantine, those are the best children to have.
The dog is very excited not having to be locked up during the day when I'm at work.
Yeah, all of them have to get used to us putting them back in their kennels later. So
Yes.
Danny was also the only lefty on the team. So.
All right, I'm gonna play dumb. What's different?
What's different?
In bowling being left-handed?
Well, the difference in bowling being left-handed is that basically when you're on the right-hand side of the lane is going to change a lot more. And you're going to move a lot on the approach. When you're on the left side of the lane's not going to change as much, but you're going to have to make a lot more physical adjustments. And if you look at some of Danny's shots, if you had seen Danny when we first got him out of high school, I mean, everybody said you'll never, because what you can't see in this video is, Danny, how tall are you?
6'3".
6'3". So
and he looks taller.
Yeah, that's tall for a bowler. And Danny used to throw the ball super hard, and everybody said you'll never get him to slow down. You'll never. And if you had seen what he went from in high school to what he became, his fundamentals are as good as you could ask for. His knee bend was phenomenal. I mean, his technique was so good, and he really became exactly what you needed to become a successful lefty in college. So he did and I'm sure Danny would agree. There were a few fights along the way, but we got there.
Only a few, not much.
Danny could be a little fiery at times. So
I still am.
Oh yeah.
Although the hair doesn't look real red on the video right now. So
No, I haven't been outside much since I've been in
yeah.
quarantine. Even though it's been,
Although
Used to spike it.
yeah.
Them blonde spikes.
yes. And
All
I will
right.
say though too, I still show like the people I work with. I've showed my boss and her husband the video of us on ESPN. So they're around the office, if we have anything bowling, who's going to get me first?
Cool. So, all right. So our next guest is our assistant coach. How many time All-American, Sammy?
2.
2-time All-American. Sammy Kuchek.
Yep. Well, obviously, as most of you guys know, I'm still a part of the program. I've been a part of the program for all but the first year. And right now, currently still living in my hometown of Hammond, Indiana. I work for Olympia Lane's Pro Shop, as well as the Calumet College assistant coach. I am happily married. We were married in 2014. 2014 August. Yeah.
I hope
Sounds
Alex
about
knows
right.
that.
Sounds about
Good.
right. But going on 6 years now. Little fun fact here. Mikey, who's actually in this group, was actually a groomsman in my wedding. He stood up in my wedding, which was pretty cool. So it kind of shows how most of us are still kind of in touch when we can be. As far as me bowling, I do still bowl, as Derek and Mikey and Coach were talking about. Toby, we are a part of a state team that bowls together. Some of us bowl nationals together, and most of us bowl some leagues together, and kind of bowl some stuff in the area as much as we can. Other than that, no kids yet. Just kind of taking it day by day. And right now in quarantine is very different. I'm not liking it very much. I like to be out doing things, and I like to be a part of bowling. I enjoy my job in the pro shop. I enjoy coaching, and it's hard being inside. But that's kind of where I'm at now, for the most part. And that's about it.
Little fun fact in regards to Sammy and Alice, though, and I think it might have been in the same year. Were you guys either senior athletes of the year or athlete of the
Yes.
year? Which one was it? Do you remember?
Yeah, so we were. I was male senior athlete of the year, and Alice was female senior athlete of the year in the same year, our senior year of college.
So how cool is that to do that and be married? So,
You're
so
like
if
the
they ever
dream
have
team.
kids, you know.
Was she a
What's that?
bowler too?
Yes.
She was.
Yeah.
Okay. So you
Yep.
guys are like the dream team.
Yeah. So if they do ever have a child, they're going to have a lot to live up to, because yeah, definitely both phenomenal bowlers. So next up, we're going to skip over Rick for right now. We'll come back to you, Rick. Okay. And next up is Toby Kraus, my little robot, Toby Kraus.
No, he's not a robot, coach.
I'm not a robot, coach. Well, I'm out in LaPorte, Indiana. I currently work for, it's called J&L Dimensional Services. It's a factory. We do jet engine parts and tank parts for the military. We don't make them, but we do all like the fine work, trying to make them look good, get all the, the rubbish part out. I am a trainer and a halfway inspector there. I became a trainer after a year and a half of working there with no experience coming in. And we just, right now we're kind of slow because of this whole COVID-19 quarantine crap, but we were told by the Secretary of Defense that we had to stay open because we work with military parts and they're still building planes and tanks and all that. As far as my life, currently house hunting. It's not going very well because the market kind of sucks right now. I still bowl. I bowl at Casey's Lanes. I'm averaging close to, 238, 240. I don't know what. Our TV show, if you want to say something, Coach, what was my first shot on TV?
Was that the 4 count?
Yeah, 4 to the face.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another fun fact about the show is we went out to El Paso. I forgot my bowling shoes in my trunk of my car. So the shoes I am wearing on TV are actually my dad's shoes. So
why didn't you have your dad's shoes?
My dad's bowling shoes. Yes, that's what I was wearing on TV in the tournament.
Because he left his shoes. Just so you know, Toby, you're breaking up a little bit. But Toby left his shoes in his car. So we
Why
got
did you have your dad's shoes with you?
Well, no, his dad brought them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Just
fortunately, his dad was
out to
coming.
El Paso.
Yeah, fortunately, his dad was coming, and his dad brought his shoes. Yeah, we were. And just so you know, Wendy, because I know you're not a bowler, but feet first. So that's the most important thing. Is the shoes are more important than the bowling ball. Yeah, shoes are really critical. So yeah, and but Toby made it work. The other thing about Toby is Toby is one of our stronger players. Toby, you got some All-American awards, didn't you?
I was first team All-American my senior year. I was also the co-MVP of the NAIA National Championship.
Yeah. So.
And then Toby. I was athlete of the year for the school senior year.
Oh, okay. Good. Absolutely.
And then one more. I actually just got back into high school bowling.
Oh, yeah?
I coached Laporte, and I actually got the team all the way to state this year.
Oh, nice.
So that was
excellent. Yeah, definitely bummed that Grinder and Albie haven't been able to pop in, but because they're also a couple of award winners as well, especially within the school athletic department awards. But our next player up is Abdul Kabir.
Uh-oh. All right, hello, Wendy. All right, guys. I think right now I reside in Schaumburg. Have a place out here. I'll be moving to California, the Bay Area, San Francisco, in June. Taking a position out there as a system administrator. But right now I work for Alexian Brothers out in Hoffman Estates. I am a tech for the lab, so running specimen and things like that. Actually, Mikey company is actually they actually pick up the specimen from different hospitals or labs or whatever, and they bring them to us, and then we run them on the machines, and we report back to the doctors of whatever they want to find out about the specimen or the blood work, whatever. But I'll be changing careers actually. So I'll be moving. It's in the Bay Area in California. So no kids, no wife or anything. I have a Yorkie, a male Yorkie, a dog, and a German Shepherd. Bella is a female. So
those are two very different dogs.
I think I yeah. Oh yeah. But they act completely the same though. They act the same.
So
yep.
We all want to move out of Illinois and Indiana to California, I think, right? I mean, at this point, it snowed today. I mean, come on.
Abdul has something very significant in his collegiate career. So towards the end of the show, when unfortunately we knew that we had lost, I made sure that players got in to throw shots, And Abdul, what happened on your first shot? Don't act
man,
like your
all 10
screen
of
is
it.
freezing.
How many did you knock down the
love
first shot?
Oh no, yeah.
Well,
So
I threw,
I'm
I
sure
threw the
your
ball in the
teammates
gutter.
will tell us.
yeah. So Abdul's first shot went in
The
the
ball in the
gutter,
gutter.
unfortunately. But more significantly,
There was a fly that flew in my face.
yeah. But more significantly, his second shot was a perfect spare, and he stood at the line with this pose and his hand up like this, and the whole stadium went crazy because we were in a stadium setting, and everybody cheered for him. And that pose was on next year's college rule book.
The cover.
So,
He's a cover boy. He's a cover athlete.
Yeah, he was the cover
Cover
photo
athlete,
for
right.
next year's college book.
Nice.
So very, very cool. Very obviously great PR for us. So yeah, that was very cool.
Honestly, that moment still stands out to me as one of the cooler moments I've witnessed in college because it was one of the only times in my 4 years of bowling in school that literally everyone in that building was behind one person. It didn't matter if you were there to root for Wichita or root against Cal College, or if you're rooting for Cal College, even the Wichita players. Like, it was just a collective moment where everyone was rallying behind him after that shot, and he absolutely threw a perfect shot. And it was just
Yeah, it's pretty
the
cool. Yeah,
roar
yeah.
from the crowd was wild.
Oh,
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
unfortunately it doesn't, and unfortunately it's a private moment because it didn't make the TV show when they aired it.
When
And
they edited it to make it fit time.
So, but it was a very cool moment. It was really.
I paid big money for them to take that out. It was going to
Yeah.
happen, but I paid money for them to edit that out of the segment.
All right. So is that everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like LB and Grinder are going to be able to make it in. I will tell you that Grinder, I know, is living in Newport Richey. He was a huge impact on why we were able to be what we were, because he was about 27 years old, 26 or 27 when we started the program. So having that type of influence from a captain early in the program's history was extremely significant. And he was really interesting because in some ways he was very quiet, and it doesn't surprise me that he shied away from doing this because that's just kind of in his personality. I thought maybe Danny could get him to do it, but you know, but because Danny and him room together all the time, so
It's Sammy too.
yeah. So, but you two are bedfellows, so I thought, and back in the day, you know, Danny used to kind of like call Grinder out to come on, we're gonna go do this or whatever, you know, and or if he had a bad day, you know, he'd always try to make sure Grinder had a better day, and so. But when I asked Grinder when he graduated, you know, I said, what did you do as a captain that I could tell future captains? And he looked at me and he said that whenever they came and they complained to him about me, and he said, and they did plenty, he said, I would look at them and I would say, why don't you try listening to him? Because he knows what he's talking about. And I said, I'm like, wow, that's just great advice for a future captain. But it was a level of maturity that I wasn't even aware was taking place at that time in a brand new program. So I give Grinder a ton of credit for our program being as successful as it was early on, hitting the ground running, because truthfully, nobody else out there makes it to nationals in the first year of their program. And one of the biggest reasons we did is because we had a presence like Grinder. I mean, he was a good player, but he certainly had a lot to learn, and he certainly worked. You know, he completely changed his game from what he was when he first came in, but he worked the right way. So because he worked the right way, all the other guys worked the right way too. You know, so because I'm a very different coach now, as I'm sure the graduates here would tell you.
He's soft.
I'm soft now.
What?
So,
Oh yeah.
They get soft when they're older. I mean, it's just inevitable.
you know, Sammy and Michael, they're always kicking my butt, telling me how soft I am, and you know, because they see it a little bit more than some of the others do. And you know, I will tell you that the athletes have changed a little bit over the years, but there's no doubt, and especially like Danny being in the first year and everything, you know, you have to remember sport conditions were really new back then. You know, so many of these kids didn't grow up bowling on sport conditions, whereas now going into our 15th season next year, all these kids have grown up on sport conditions. So it's just a completely different dynamic where many of these guys that started in the program in those first couple of years, they're coming off of bowling on house shots, which are very, very different than bowling in sport conditions. Sport conditions are much, much tougher. So they had to go through a much more extreme learning curve. And they had to deal with a much more maniac coach, quite honestly. You know, I was definitely a little, I had, well, for one, I had more energy. And for two, I was definitely more fiery back then. There's no doubt about it.
How many clipboards did you break?
Yeah, there's definitely some broken clipboards over the years. There's no doubt about it. Definitely.
Honestly, as far as coach fry-out moments go, the favorite one that I've ever heard actually happened the year before I made it to college. But from what I understand, he became so furious with the team that he left, went to the bathroom, and slammed the stall door shut so hard it got stuck shut. And Dad, how exactly did you get out of there?
Yeah, that's kind of a true story. I had to crawl underneath the stall door to get back to the team. So
Still my favorite story.
You know, I tell when I'm out recruiting, I say, look, college bowling is a sport. And I'm like every other coach in all of those other sports, you know, because that's another thing. Early in the early years, you know, college bowling really wasn't quite on the map yet as a sport. You know, it's much more on the map now than it was back then, you know, because I don't even think there was NCAA bowling yet. I'm not sure if NCAA had even started bowling yet on the girls' side at that time. So it was just a really different climate, but I was very much a college coach back then, just like I am now.
Anybody else have funny stories? I mean, we can take this time to roast.
Oh well, there's I don't know if all the stories are made for social media or not.
Yes, remember,
can you take it off record?
Clean versions.
He's like, can you take it off record?
I'll tell you a funny story that I remember, and I believe it happened in El Paso. Unfortunately, nobody got hurt, but I'm pretty sure that there was a
hotel
piece of pizza that I think went about 10 flights down and went splat on the concrete down below or something.
For the record, it started because we went to an arcade and we ended up with the tickets buying a bunch of the parachute men.
That's the great story too, yeah.
We were dropping the parachute men off the top of the hotel, and then it turned into the Super Bowl and leftover pizza.
And a lot of,
you know, they were very scientific experiments. We had to see the difference in, you know, the reaction time and how quickly things fell. That's what it was.
Well, and that actually makes me think of another story, because you guys went to the place with the skee ball and you pretty much ran the place out of business.
Oh, Brothers in Lincoln, Nebraska. We won Jerry won a bike. That's actually on my Facebook memories today, believe it or not. Jerry holding the bike in the air like this. And then I just remember us trying to get home and trying to fit it with all the equipment in the back of the van so he could get the bike home.
So, and the guys know that Coach likes to have a Merlot every once in a while after competition's over. So
I was just going to say, was that Merlot you're drinking, or was that cranberry?
It is. I didn't think it would be appropriate if Coach wasn't sipping a wine. So
I sort of saw you take a sip of it, Coach.
That's my doctor's order red wine there.
Oh, of course.
All right. Let's see. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about, Mike? In particular?
No, I don't think so. I think it's, you know, I think the other thing that's really cool is I know all these guys still pay attention. You know, I know that Albie just put some awesome words on Facebook the other day. When we were actually winning sectionals down in Smyrna not too long ago, Danny came and visited us there because Smyrna is not too far from Nashville. I know they all pay attention. I know that, and that's another thing that I tell recruits, is that the graduates of the program, they all care about the streak now. The fact that now it's the longest in all of college bowling on the men's side and making the national finals. Obviously we're at 13 years in a row, and hopefully this year would have been 14, but with postseason not happening, the streak is still intact, and it's still the longest in college bowling on the men's side. And I know that they all care about that. I know it's a pretty cool thing, and I've heard some of them over the years when they've gotten through. They've looked at it and said, okay, I did my 4 years, and it's kind of like passing the torch on to the next group. And, I think that hopefully we can keep it going, and hopefully someday there will be a team that surpasses these guys and does bring home the national title.
Well, I have two questions. So the first one, and anybody can jump in that wants to, is can you talk about, and this is kind of a recruiting kind of thing, how did college athletics aid you to get to where you are now, or to build the person that you've become, or that kind of thing? So anything about lots of people talk about, the importance of hiring college athletes because they know how to prioritize, and they know how to compete, and they know those kinds of things. So talk about what college athletics, being a college athlete, how it led to, your successes in life and that kind of thing.
Well, I will say that I'm 30 years old now, and there's never been a time in my adult life where my resume hasn't had some of my college bowling accolades on there. And most of I didn't have any individual accolades I achieved in college, which that's okay though, because I was more worried about having the team accolades on there, because it shows well, for one, sports are prevalent everywhere, regardless of what sport you're playing. You'd be amazed at how often I'm in an interview and sports get brought up, and then next thing you know, the interview kind of veers away a little bit, and it gives you a chance to show a little bit of your personality as you talk with the interviewer. But it also shows that you were able to compete within a unit, and especially with the way a lot of these job places are going. We have people that work from home often outside, like before this whole coronavirus and COVID-19 thing happened, and we still have to collaborate together, even though we're in different buildings and different states. So being able to work within a unit, and not just excel individually, but also for the betterment of everyone that's working on the same project that you're working on, is something that you really can garner in athletics. Because like Derek talked about it earlier, our ability that year as a team to communicate was huge. And it's no different once you get into the workforce when you're working with a group of people. Like that ability to communicate efficiently is absolutely next to none on things that you can do. So that's one thing I will say big time that I got a lot more of. I got some in high school, but in college it's just another level.
Anybody else?
Well, yeah, just to kind of touch up on like what Mikey said, but through college athletics, there's a higher demand, I would say, than like in high school sports or stuff like that. Like when you're performing in the college, and I'm sure in any other college sport, but like especially say like in a college in a bowling alley, bowling center, when there are collegiate tournaments going on, you got a team with 10 guys, 8 players, 2 coaches, and there's 40, 50, 60 teams at some of these tournaments. There's really no room to move. You're cramped up. You're walking on bowling balls, this and that. So I guess you could say so a lot of college athletes can perform perform in a stressful environment. They can meet deadlines. They know what needs to be done, kind of things like that you don't really get from a typical college student. When you're I understand like with term papers, finals, and all that, but when you have to also physically perform in stressful environments, when you're mentally broken down after 10 hours of spending in a bowling alley, you're physically drained. You've been on your feet for 12 hours, but you can still get up there and perform. And a lot of employers like that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
That's actually a really good point, Wendy, because I think that's one of the things that's overlooked in our sport a little bit is that our days are often 7, 8 hours long. And, sometimes these guys are, they're tracking for 2, 3 hours and then I'm asking them to make shots and it's hard. And in every preseason, the guys hear the same speech about how hard it is to come off the bench in college bowling. It's very difficult. And nowadays, I think back in their days, we had practice pairs a little bit, but we don't. College bowling has exploded so much that there's a lane bet issue now, and there's no practice pairs even anymore. So they've got to work even harder to be loose and be ready to come off the bench and make a shot right in the moment. So it's definitely not easy. But the other thing I was going to tell you about kind of college bowling and the workplace, even myself, I bowled at Vincennes for 2 years in college. But when I went for my first interview, it was for a management position at Walgreens. And all my interviewer did was talk to me about college bowling. He thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I walked into an interview of 23 suits. And we're all in the waiting room together. And they came out and they told us, we're going to hire 2 of you today. And fortunately, I was one of the 2 that got hired. And because at the time, my son was, actually, I don't know if my son was around yet. He wasn't quite around yet. Only my daughter was around. But it was really interesting that he talked to me more about college bowling and college athletics than he did about anything else.
Anybody else?
I'll go ahead and jump in and just talk about a little bit of the relationships that are formed through college bowling. Being a part of a college bowling team, you get to meet a lot of new people, not only with your own team and the people at your school, but a bunch of other schools and a bunch of other fans of college bowling. You never know who you're going to run into. You never know where that's going to take you in life. The people that you meet in those 4 years, you just don't know who you can run into. A perfect example is, not necessarily that happened in my 4 years of bowling, but just being involved with college bowling for as long as I have, it gets you in touch with different people, or we'll say different companies. So like bowling ball manufacturing companies. I'm actually on a bowling ball staff with Hammer Products, who's now owned by Brunswick. But all of my years with bowling and coaching, all of the relationships that I made and the people that I met along the way, I believe aided to that aspect of it, and it helped me get in touch with that company and kind of get what I was looking for in my own personal bowling, and also with working in the pro shop at Olympia Lanes. It's kind of the same thing. The common theme here is all that I do. It kind of revolves around bowling. And I've met so many people, and it all started, obviously it started at a young age when I first started bowling, but it really blossomed when I got into college athletics. And that's when I really started seeing that the relationships that you can have, or you can maintain through that time as you bowl and as you go through school, they really do make a difference later on.
And I think touching on that a little bit, with what's going on today, I think many of us, and certainly I know Sammy and I, because we both work in the industry, are paying close attention with the COVID-19 situation. Bowling is an area that is really getting hit hard, because there have been so many events that are getting pushed down the road and getting canceled. And there's been so many college kids this year that obviously lost postseason, and now they're losing out on junior gold competition, which, by the way, Rick, I don't know if you noticed or not, but junior gold's been canceled. This situation, and because bowling is such a community-driven sport, bowling is getting hit really hard right now. Bowling will bounce back because it's a community that is it's such a social community. So social media is really prevalent, but bowlers are very, very active in social media as well. And I think as a huge community, we will bounce back. There's no doubt. But the proprietors are having a rough go right now. There's no doubt about it. And we're all not sure how. They're not sure how they're going to reopen yet and what it's going to look like. And some of our major tournaments aren't even sure what it's going to look like yet. But that is one of the awesome things about the relationships formed in the bowling community. There's no doubt in my mind bowling will bounce back.
Rick, do you have anything you want to say to them before my final question?
Yeah, I'll occasionally go out and bowl. I'm good for about 3 games. So I always tell Mike and Randy, I'm like, I can't imagine the amount of stress your bodies go through at any given tournament. So for that, and the more I get to know about bowling, about the sport, and the conversations I have with Mike, the more respect I have for each of you. And I only wish I could have been a part of that ride when you guys went through that. And I'd just like to know one thing, and you don't all have to answer it, but in any given sport, and I coach myself, but you always have that defining moment where you just know when it's going to happen, And I know that we all start preparing for that. We always prepare our athletes for that ultimate journey, where that destination is going to lead you to. But at what point during the season did any of you know? Like, was there a defining moment? Was it something somebody said? Was it something that happened where you just knew that you were destined to, vie for a national championship?
Well, if I could speak on that a little bit, I would say that, it kind of goes back to what we've kind of talked about. For me, it started in preseason when we had Grinder and Albie say, look, here's the deal. We're going to be the best spare shooting team in the country. This is what cost us last year. If you miss a spare, you're doing push-ups. And it was just one of those things where, as they held themselves accountable, we had to kind of respect them a little more when they tried to hold us accountable. And that kind of steamrolled. But if we go a little further down the line, once we got into nationals, the top 16, we barely scraped by those first 2 matches, if I remember correctly. Was it McKendree and then Arizona State, I believe, were the 2 that we took down? But we really battled, and they were dogfights, and both of those matches could have gone either way. And after we kind of got through those first 2, which were pretty big names in the college bowling world at the time, and then we took on Rochester Institute of Technology, and if I remember correctly, I feel like we beat them pretty handedly, especially
4-2.
Yeah, but and I feel like it wasn't even that close. But I feel like after grinding through those first 2 matches and then really kind of catching that groove against Rochester, it was just, there was no stopping us. We were getting there. We happened to run into an absolute steamroller in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that so we were in the winners bracket, and so we had to get beat twice, and we were up 3-1 on Lindenwood, looking really good, but closing out to make television is tough. And next thing you know, it's 3-3, and all of a sudden we're on a catwalk lane. Danny doesn't have a look on the left side. Derek's look wasn't that good, and Abdul's look wasn't that good, and we're struggling in Game 6. And one of the jokes that Michael and I always have with each other is his college career came down to 2 shots. And so it's 3-3 against Lindenwood. I bring Mikey off the bench in end of game 6 when we know we've pretty much lost it. And I ask him to make a shot. And he does what I asked him to do. His shot ends up splitting, but he made the shot that I wanted him to make. So I look at him in game 7 now, and I go, you're leading off. And so not only as a coach, but as a father, I'm now throwing my son in the leadoff position of game 7 to try to help us get to TV. And, you know, for me as a father, it was one of the most, it turned out to be one of the most amazing moments for me to see my son go out there and execute the way he did. For me as a coach, I'm scared to death going, you know, what does this decision look like? And so he went up there and he threw a perfect shot in the first frame, and he made another great shot in the 6th frame for a 3-bagger. And we went on to win game 7 to make the TV show. So it was quite a moment. I mean, definitely a moment. And to this day, he's mad at me because he didn't bowl. I didn't start him on the TV show.
I don't care what anyone says. I had a great look. It gets brought up at least one holiday a year. At least one. So I'll make sure I give it to him.
Definitely does. But, you know, one other thing that I'd like to touch on, and I'd like Danny to elaborate on this a little bit. Danny's parents will run our program a ton. I'd like to hear a little bit of what Danny has heard over the years, not only being in the program, but even after years gone by. Has there been any more discussion from mom and dad about the years around the program?
We have talked about it, and especially like, you know, since, you know, this is the 10-year anniversary, we were talking about it the other day, and just, you know, how much, you know, fun we had in El Paso, because it was just so much fun. And, you know, we talk to Dominic too about it, and, you know, say, you know, you don't remember this, but 10 years ago, you were out traveling the USA with, you know, watching your uncle bowl, and seeing him bowl now is really exciting. And really,
cool.
It was an opportunity I'll never forget, because we had a very good bond, especially with me, Sammy, Albie, and Grinder, because we were all like brothers. We would get into the room at night.
Mm-hmm.
If Albie was in a bad mood, one of us would find a way to pull a prank on him, which was we'd all start laughing at.
Yeah, Albie definitely is. He's our fiery one. But to Albie's defense, he worked his butt off to become the player that he became. Because if I'm not mistaken, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Albie was probably always the first one throwing balls at practice. I mean, he was always like first one on the lanes, and so he worked his butt off. He worked his butt off on, you know, and the game didn't come easy for him. He had to grind. He was the epitome of a grinder. Even though Claycorn was called, that was his nickname. But Albie was the kind of player that could look ugly for 7 or 8 frames, but figure out a way to spare everything, throw 2 or 3 strikes, and all of a sudden you look up and he still shot .215 for the team. You know, so he was just that kind of player. He would just figure out a way to get it done a lot of times. So, but usually he hated himself more than anything through the whole process. So it was kind of funny with him.
All right, we're coming up on an hour, and I want to be, you know, conscious of everyone's time. So I have one thing that I would like.
Hey,
10 years. Oh, do you have something? Go ahead.
I'm probably gonna have to get off of here in like 2 minutes. I apologize.
Okay.
That's okay. Real quick. What advice 10 years later would you give to current players? Hey, if I'd have known this 10 years ago, this is what, you know, what advice can you give them?
I would have to say something like what Coach was talking about, what Grinder said earlier, because I find myself telling a lot of the new recruits that they get now when I, you know, watching them practice, whatever. A lot of times when I talk to them, they're very frustrated with Coach just because he's Coach. And a lot of times I always tell them, I know he frustrates you. I know he's going to make you seriously, seriously mad on any given moment. But take a deep breath and just listen to him. Just listen to him. I know it sounds like you're gonna be I know it sounds like you're gonna be banging your head against the wall nonstop, but just listen to him. There's a
Very
reason.
good. I like it.
There's a reason he's there, and there's a reason why the program has been as successful as it has been.
All right. Anybody else?
With me and Coach, I mean, you can sit there and he'll tell anybody that comes up to him that knows me. They'll say, "Yeah, you coach Toby," and he'll say, "No, I didn't coach Toby for 4 years. I fought with him." And if I had to tell the kids these days that are being coached by him, I'll say, just listen to him. I mean, even though I fought with him for 4 years, he made me the player that I am today. So, I mean, he really improved my game. I mean, I came into the program either throwing it hard straight up the lane or I was trying to hook it as much as possible. And he made my game into more of a finesse game, and he definitely tweaked my fair game.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's a little unique for me because I'm still around the program. So I've had to see the evolution of the program from when I've bowled to what it is now, and in ways how I would have approached things when I bowled, and the way I depict to some of the guys now, it's very much different. But there are some similarities. Obviously, me and Coach and I are a little bit different as far as the way we like to coach these guys, but it makes it work well. So if I had to go back 10 years and kind of let someone know now what I learned then, it would kind of echo a lot of what the other guys are saying, and to just listen to be fully embraced in the moment that you're in, whether it's practice, whether it's a tournament, whether you're bowling in national finals, be present in that particular moment, because that particular moment, even if it is practice, it's going to prepare you for that national championship moment. When you have to throw a shot on national television, or when you have to throw a shot to win a tournament, anything like that, it's going to come back to the practice that you've put in. It's going to come back to that one moment where you put yourself there and you learned how you were going to react to it. And I would say that's probably the single most important thing I would tell recruits, tell some kids now that are going to be a part of the team, is to take those moments and prepare yourself like that accordingly.
Yeah, I think, and one of the things that's really nice for me is because Sammy was a player who went through the challenges of it, and who is now a coach. He can actually look at the players sometimes and go, "Look, guys, I've seen it from both sides, and I understand your frustration as a player, but trust me," he'll say, "I'm more tired as a coach when we're done than I was as a player." So
Definitely.
he tells the players that all the time, and
100%.
because now he sees what it's like to be fully invested in everybody's shot, as opposed to just being invested in your own and somewhat invested in the other shots. So it's really nice that he's able to give that perspective to the guys.
And another thing I want to add is, since I'm a head coach of the high school team now, is I actually throw a lot of your coaching techniques into what I do. And I think that's kind of what helped get this team to state this year, which is the first time they've ever been there. So, and I fought with you, but I thank you, Coach, for everything that I've learned and how I coach now.
Thanks, Tobe.
Toby was always the sap. If there was a really good piece of advice I can give to a young player out there, possibly a prospective recruit, I mean, obviously we've heard everyone kind of glow a little bit. We all know Coach is really good at what he does. The track record speaks for itself. In a more of a personal and individual level, when you're bowling, one of the things with bowlers, we're pretty well known for our fiery attitudes, a lot of us, getting angry a lot while we're bowling, and so much that it just comes down to the fact that we have so much control over what happens in the shot. And so often it's just a little small tweak here or there that we didn't quite catch right. And that's what caused us to, not have a good shot or not strike. So we're in full control in a sense. So, you get really upset when you can't continue to do what you're trying to do. If there's one thing that I will say is that you only have the next 4 shots of your teammates to be upset. And then you need to just let that all go, because throwing a shot angry or trying to throw a shot to make up for your last one will absolutely never work. That's one of the rules I've always kind of held myself to. Is I got the next 6 minutes to be really mad, but then I got to kind of mentally prepare myself for what I'm actually trying to do on the lanes and just kind of get back to it. Having a short memory, that is the way to go. Absolutely.
Very nice. Danny, I think you're the only one.
I will have to say the biggest thing that coach has taught me, and I would suggest for a future recruit, is have the confidence in yourself. Because when I first joined this program, I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. Got excited when, about the college bowling. And then looking back at it now is I wish I would have just told myself I can do this. That's why coach picked me, is believe in yourself, and then the rest will follow.
Awesome. Great advice, life advice, actually, for everyone. So, not just bowling, that's all great life advice. So, do you have anything else you want to say to them before we sign off?
Well, for me, this is just an awesome trip down memory lane. It makes what we do so worth it as a coach when you get to have these moments like this, and you get to, you get to experience their lives now as an adult. With Derek, Sammy, Toby, and Michael, we actually won a state title together in 2014. And so that was a really cool thing to be able to do. And, knowing that Danny's parents were, and I see his dad on Facebook still all the time, and his mom on Facebook all the time, and I know they're paying attention, and I'm trying to just not only with these guys, but all of the others around the country, do my best to keep up with them as much as I can. This is just getting a chance to be reminded of where we came from to where we are now, and hearing their perspective on some things. And it fills my heart. It really does.
Anybody have any last words for Coach?
I will have to say, when Coach first told me about this like 2 days ago, I was like, oh, some little cheesy thing Coach is doing at first. I will admit, I did think that. I was like, I was kind of skeptical about it, but
it was my idea. You can back off. It was my idea.
Because he got a hold of me. But no, I was really happy that I downloaded the app and did this. It was really awesome to have everybody together talking about it. Like Coach said, it was a great trip down memory lane, just reminiscing about it. I really enjoyed this.
I did too. It was awesome. I love hearing old stories. And as somebody that has been in college athletics and a wife of a coach and coached myself, hearing stories, and is obviously as hard as he is to play for, what I'm gathering, hearing how much it means to you now and what you learned from it always is awesome. That's why coaches do it. So, all right. Any last words?
I got a quick question. Is there, Mike and Sammy, do you have a team since this team that you think might give these guys a run for their money?
Probably that team that finished third. What year was it, Sammy? 15, 16?
Yeah, it was probably 2015.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, it would have been.
Are we looking at Mitch and Burks and Davidson?
Yeah. Yes. Mitch, Burks, Davidson, and Kuba.
Yeah, that's a good 4. But they didn't have what we had, which was grinder.
but the one thing that other team did, and I don't know if it's a record or not, but they won 4 out of 5 tier 1s that year, and they finished the year ranked number 1. And they were making a run to get back to TV, and had they made it back to TV that year, they would have seen Wichita again, which would have been awesome. But they had to beat Midland twice because they were coming out of the losers bracket, and that team unfortunately lost to Midland the second time around. But probably that.
We'll set up a 2010 against 2016 match.
I like it.
There you go.
Yeah, I feel like there was throughout the years that there have been, I think, 2 other teams, with the exception of the 2010 team. There have been two other years, 2 other teams that were, in my opinion, it's hard to say that they were a better team, but they were. I believe there were more talented. There were 2 more talented teams than the team we had in 2010. Not to say our team in 2010 wasn't talented, because we were really good in 2010. And to be able to say that I've seen 2 other teams that could probably compete with that team. It was a pleasure to watch those 2 teams, those particular 2 years, because I believe we've had 2 years where we were ranked number 1.
Right.
And those 2 teams it would be fun to see a match between them. But yeah, if I had to say, it would probably be those 2 teams, whether it be 2015, and even our more recent teams could probably, talent-wise, compete with that 2010 team. But the one thing about the 2010 team, kind of like we alluded to throughout this whole thing, was that, at the start of the year, we said what we were going to do. And as it evolved, and as it kind of got closer to national championship time, we all 8 plus 2 coaches plus some of the other guys that were fighting for spots, we all just pulled together. And if there was one thing that I continue to tell some of these other newer teams, is that I remind them of that. I remind them of these things we talked about in this Zoom meeting today. It really goes a long way. But there have been some other good teams, and I'd be really interested to see some of that.
I think I actually thought about that a little bit today, and the difference between those teams and this 2010 team. This 2010 team didn't have a ton of high rev guys, and had a lot more down and in players, and we've had more strikeability in these last few years, but that's what made this team as good as it was, and getting there is because this team is a little bit more down and in. They're a little scrappier, much better at filling frames, and that's what you really need to win matches. You got to fill frames. So I was thinking about that today, because we definitely have a tendency to have players with a little more rev rate now, which gives them some higher strikeability, but that also generally brings a few more opens with it as well. So this particular 2010 team was definitely one of the scrappiest teams, no doubt about it.
All right. Anybody have anything else?
So,
Roll wave.
it was great meeting you guys. Thanks for sharing.
Oh yeah, I actually do have one other thing. The
No quits.
no quits. No quits. That is where this is the year that it originated from. And they even talk about it on the show. The mantra of no quits. So yeah, that's the other thing.
Awesome. Well, I hope to meet you all someday in person. But if this goes any longer, the quarantine thing, we might have to set up like a wee bowling tournament against the 2010 and 2015 team or something, just for entertainment, if nothing else. So, but I really appreciate y'all taking some time tonight and getting together with Coach so he could reminisce a little bit. And I want to thank you all. I'm going to jump off. I can leave it on if you guys want to stay on.
No, I have dinner to get to with the family, but thank you,
I
Wendy.
think
This
we're
was
all
awesome.
good.
So thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Have a good night.
Guys.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.